Hi, Barry. Welcome back to CityCast Denver.
Hi, Bree. Thank you for having me back.
So we're doing another edition of our podcast recommendation special called Listen Local with you, our local podcast expert. What are you bringing us today?
The podcast is called How Art is Born, and it's by one of our art museums here. So I went to their launch, and I really loved the energy of the launch. You know, energy matters of things. So I couldn't wait to listen to this podcast. And it's about art, which is like what I feel like we're really talking about, like creatives and art and that kind of thing. So it just felt like something I was supposed to listen to.
And How Art is Born is a podcast brought to us by MCA Denver, which is our contemporary art museum here. How does this show work? What is it about? What's sort of the format?
The format, it's a conversational show, but it is done by someone that is local. And I would say it's a comfortable format. Basically, like what is your path in art and like how you're getting to do what you do. And specifically in episode 1, he's talking to a photographer. Armando is what I want to say his name was, but it's very I didn't like when I was listening to it 5 minutes in, I was just like, this is a very Denver podcast. I can't even explain what that means, but I was like, oh my God, this is a Denver podcast. Like, this is exactly like, these are my people. That's what it feels like. Like the host gets that, you know, as far as somebody understanding the state they're making a podcast about, but also the guests get that. So I would say it's something that if you want to know about the love of Denver people have without them just saying like, I love Denver and here's the spots I love, but like the spirit of it, that's what this podcast felt like it was about, like hearing from creatives, but also hearing the spirit of like Denver and what it's been through and the people that are here.
Okay, yeah. So it's hosted by R. Alan Brooks, who is a writer musician. And I think he hosts a comic book podcast as well.
Yes.
And the photographer you're talking about is Armando Gennaro, who's a friend of mine. Phenomenal photographer. He captures in his photographs what I think you're exactly describing about this podcast, which is it captures the spirit of Denver. So the feeling, the people, the things that aren't necessarily obvious on the surface or when someone, you know, when like if you think about like the tourism board of Colorado saying, come to Colorado, this is what it's about. Those kinds of things don't touch on what Armando finds in his photographs. And I can imagine a conversation with him would be wonderful.
It's exactly how you just described that, Brie, like the spirit, you know, just like what goes on here. But it's kind of like when I was listening to this, it's so funny that, you know, I'm on your podcast, but I was like, it was so Denver in a way like that they were talking about how they met on the dance floor and like how they knew each other, but didn't know each other, but knew each other because they've been going to the same parties and saw each other and were partying together. And I feel like that is such a Denver scene of like
Mm,
something like if you were in old school Denver, you know, like you'll
yeah.
see people on the regular that you don't necessarily know their names or things like that, but you're like, we party together. If I see them on a dance floor or something, I know they're going to have fun and I'm a party with them. I see them, I'm going to point them out like, I saw you the last time we had a good time. We're about to party together again. And that was like, oh my God. I was like, that's exactly how Denver is. People get to know each other almost through the club scene or through like, you know, the happening scene and that kind of thing. You hang out outside of that, but you kind of meet each other in a way of that you didn't have to have conversations. It was like the energy of like, oh, we both just got good energy. And then you became friends because that was happening.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great descriptor of something that still happens in Denver, but it isn't quite as common, is that little small town nature of us where you could bump into the same person over and over again because you run in circles that sort of run next to each other.
Yes.
Um, and I mean, that's how I met Armando, was just through sort of the scene of artists. But I'm looking at the podcast now, How Art is Born, and R. Alan Brooks talks to comedian Janae Burris. He talks to immersive artist Lonnie Hansen, who's been doing quote unquote immersive art for decades before this became a sort of buzzwordy thing. Another artist, painter Diego Rodriguez Warner. So it's artists talking to other artists. What do you think? What is it about that aspect of it, Barry, that you think works well in this podcast?
It made me as a creative, like so many times I was just like, yes, Yes, exactly. Yes, I was just saying, like, yes, exactly. Like, doing a lot of different things as a creative, but the thing that you're supposed to do taking off, but you don't even think about that because you were afraid to do it, and then you do it, and that's the thing people are waiting for you to do, and that kind of thing. And Armando talked about that with his pictures and, like, high riders and low riders, and doing research and, like, saying, like, oh, I'm gonna lean into that, and just kind of finding that, like, getting over the fear, knowing there's a fear, you want to do something, you're creative and you're doing things, but, like, leaning into that fear of, like, I'm gonna try that thing that kind of seems scary, it might flop, but I'm gonna do it anyway. And maybe it did flop, but then you did it again or use the skills you used from that for something else. And that was just, like, they just kept talking about that throughout the whole podcast of, like, the whole creative mind, how you've tried a lot of things, how, you're using different skills to do things. So, like, once people know you for one thing, you're like, I know how to do 20 other things, but this is the thing you know me for, or, like, that, like, popped off. So it was so great, like, to hear it as a creative. And I feel like a lot of us are more accepting that we are creative in different ways, or, what we're doing is, like, I have a regular job, but I do this after jobs, or, that kind of thing. So I was just like, this is us. Like, this is what adults are now. I'm so glad we're able to talk and have these conversations, because that's what I needed to hear. Like, as an entrepreneur, that's cool. But, like, as a creative, it's almost different. You're always trying to think of something new that hasn't been done. And that's not normal in a sense, because you're trying to think of something, like, create something that it doesn't exist. So I think that this podcast really touched on that well, and, like, trying to get to those different spaces to create something you're just thinking about that doesn't exist. But, as you're doing things, you're like, oh, I'm getting closer to what I'm supposed to be doing.
Awesome. I'm so excited to listen to this. I have to say, I didn't know it existed, but the guests that they have on are all people whose work I admire. So thank you so much for this recommendation, Barry. And Barry, where can we find you online to get more recommendations and your thoughts on podcasts in general?
Podcast with an S, in color. If you search that, you'll find me on most social networks. There's also podcastincolor.com that'll link you to me. But yes, everything Podcast in Color. If you search that, you'll find me.
Thank you so much, Barry.
Thank you, Bree.
Brooks, a writer and professor. This is How Art is Born, an MCA Denver podcast about the origins of artists and their creative and artistic practice. Today I'm joined by photographer Armando Gennaro. Hey.
What's up, man?
Yeah, I know it was an awkward hey, but I wanted you to be this.
No, not at all.
So to start off, can you give us a brief interview of yourself and your artistic practice?
Yeah, man. So Armando Gennaro, I am a photographer here in Denver. I've been photographing different subcultures here in Denver for, like, the last 7 years. I know we've met a long time ago, back during the Solution and Goodness days.
Yeah.
Goodness is still going, but Solution is kind of on a little hiatus.
Right.
But yeah, I've seen you cut up the dance floor many a time, and I've been lucky enough to be there with the camera to capture it, and just capture the good vibes to a bunch of different parties here in Denver. Aside from the party scene, I've documented the lowrider community. It's some of my favorite work that I've done here in Denver. Nice. And just overall, just try to document different communities here in Denver that aren't really celebrated in the mainstream when it comes to Denver. I think when you think about Denver, or when you try to search Denver on social media, or you just online, it's a different world. It's it's what's pushed in popular media is the dispensaries and the breweries and yoga and hiking and Red Rocks and that, all that stuff is great, but there's so much more to Denver. There's so many more communities here in Denver that make Denver special. So I've just been fortunate enough to be able to connect with people, build relationships with people here in Denver in different communities, and they've allowed me to come in and document their lives and their cultures, man. It's been fun.
That's really dope, man. That's dope. I'm glad that you gave context about how we know each other, because I think it's an interesting thing. Just because we've never really sat down to talk.
Yeah.
It's this interesting thing where like when you know people from the dance floor, right?
Right.
Like, and especially like me being a non-drinker, like I just go straight to the dance floor and I don't really have much conversation with anybody. Right. So you can know people for like a decade, it feels like, and not really.
It feels like we've known each other for that long. Right. It's like anytime I see you, it's like, hey, what's up, man? Armando, blah, blah, blah. You know, dab each other up and it's all cool, but like that's the extent of our conversation.
Yeah, we don't really know.
I mean, when it's like the music is so loud, it's like we can't sit there and have a conversation on the dance floor. You know,
I'll see people out in the real world that I know from the dance floor, and I'll be like, "That's your voice."
Right.
So it's cool to be able to like kind of get into who you are as an artist, man. So you talk with a lot of pride about Denver. Are you a native?
I'm not. So I'm from California originally.
Yeah.
Born in LA, raised in a town called Lompoc.
Okay.
And it's like 2.5 hours north of LA.
Yeah.
And it's a small town, but it's like a very diverse town. It's an interesting mix of people. You have there's like a really big Air Force base there.
Yeah. There's
a really big penitentiary there. And then it's also, so you have those populations that live and work there.
Yeah.
And then you have a bunch of, it's like a huge migrant worker population.
Okay.
There's a lot of fields and there's it's called the Valley of the Flowers. So yeah, you have an interesting mix of people. And it's like, low to middle income families.
Yeah.
And so, I grew up, super proud to be from California, know. But I ended up in the military and that's how I ended up out here.
Okay. So what branch of the military were you in?
Air Force.
Okay.
Yeah, I did 6 years in the Air Force from 2003 to 2009.
How old were you when you joined the military?
20.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So before you got into the military, in your earlier years in California, how did you get involved in art?
So I guess I always felt like I was like a creative kid. My dad was a jeweler. And so he was always like drawing, sketching out stuff. And so from an early age, that was like around me. And it was just like something that I gravitated towards.
Yeah.
My mom was more like she has like an accounting background.
Okay. And
I always hated math and numbers. And so like as a kid, I just gravitated toward being like an artsy type of kid.
Yeah.
Trying to emulate what my dad did. And yeah, so like from a very early age, like I said, I always felt the need to create. That's how I kind of got into like music.
Okay. Well, so were you mean listening to music or were you were making?
Listening to music. Yeah. Like I played in a band.
Yeah.
Played the bass. Probably wasn't that great at it, but yeah. So like from an early age, I was just like felt the need to create. Like I just always was like trying to do something. Like I have books. My mom has books stashed away from like 4th or 5th grade.
Okay.
With like my poetry from that.
Oh, nice.
Kid. Yeah, I was like English class made us do poetry, and so like I was just always creative, man. I always had felt like I needed to like say something, Well,
let me ask, what did the creativity do for you? Like for some people it's an escape, for some people it's a way to communicate. Like, what was it doing for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's I guess both of those. It's like escaping from into my own little world.
Yeah.
Just kind of like being able to like create something, look back on it with pride, and like, yo, I made this,
right.
Like, so it was just something that helped me kind of gain confidence in like certain areas of my life. Like, with photography, eventually, like, I'm kind of a shy person, kind of an introvert, and so like photography really forced me to like, talk to people and like go up to them first.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, well, so then I've been talking with people about how art can be for yourself as an artist to work through your pain.
Yeah.
Or it can also be for like what you want to say to the world.
Right.
And so for some artists, they're focused on one or the other. Some people do both.
Yeah.
Where do you feel like you stand in that?
Definitely feel like I'm falling along the line, on both of those.
Yeah.
I lost my dad when I was 18. And so for the 2 years in between losing my dad and then joining the military, it was kind of like a dark time for me. I wasn't creating. I was like, I was living at home with my mom still. I was like trying to help her out.
Yeah.
Just working. and not doing much of anything. And so eventually when I joined the military and I started like picking up different things, like I started like trying to go back to the pen, to like, you know, writing stuff out.
Okay.
Poetry, and then poetry became lyrics. And so it was a way to definitely deal with the pain of losing my pops. But, you know, at the same time, like I was like writing about like different ills of the world. Like, you know, growing up, my parents were like super strict, super conservative, like South American immigrants. Okay. Like go to church on Sundays, go to mass. They like try to protect me. Right. But like, you know, after like losing my pops, and it kind of forced me to grow up, you know, a little bit more like rapidly. Yeah. And so I was kind of like, I lost him at a time when I really needed him. Like I was about to, I was 18 years old. You know, I was a young man already, but there's still so much more that I needed him to be around for. No doubt. And so like, I was like finding out all these different things in life that I didn't know about as a kid. And I was, you know, I had moved away from my mom, joined the military. And so, so just like, it was a way for me to deal with my dad's loss, but also like, you know, speak on shit that like was affecting me, and like I see that was affecting the people that I was around, and you know, stuff that's happening in the real world.
So your focus then was on like lyrics and and songs and stuff like that. Is that kind of what you stay with through the military?
Yeah. And that's kind of like what not forced me out, because like it was my choice to join the military, but like ultimately I just felt like the military wasn't for me. Yeah. You know, and I did my 6 years, you know, I signed up for 6 years. So I you know, went through with my term or whatever, but I was like, you know what, I could be, you know, doing so many more things than you know, taking orders from. Yeah, I get it. Yeah. So you're 26, 27 when you came out? 26.
Okay. Is that when you ended up in Denver?
So they stationed me in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Okay. Of all places, coming from California. It's a complete culture shock. Right. But Cheyenne's only like an hour and a half away from Denver. Yeah. And so I would come here on the weekends on my time off. And the very first time I set foot in Denver was in 2003. Okay. And
that's when I moved here, actually.
Okay, crazy. Small world, bro. Right. And so I just like started meeting people from 2003 until all the way until I got out of the military. I stayed in Cheyenne for like another year or so. Mm-hmm. But I had some homies that I was in the military with that I was waiting to get out with. Okay. So then we all got out, and then some of us moved down here to Denver. Yeah. And then I ended up going to like Metro State. Okay. And going to school for free on the GI Bill. Oh, nice. Yeah. What'd you go to school for? So I went to school I graduated with a political science degree. Yeah. Which is worthless. And then it was like a minor in sociology. All right. Yeah. So you came out like, did you have like a plan? Like, were you thinking that you were going to try and do more art stuff? Or you were just like, I'm just getting out? I'm just getting out. Yeah. I'm just getting out. I don't want to be in the military no more. Right. And yeah, I'm just going to, it's like another dark period of time, because like trying to find myself after the military. Right. What I wanted to do was I thought I was going to be getting into like law school after I graduated from Metro. Okay. And so then I realized that the money had dried up and law school was going to have to be on my dime. And then I was like, you know what? I don't think I'm going to do law school now. That does change minds. Yeah. But the last semester that I was in school, I took a photojournalism class. Okay. And I took like a film class where I was like learning how to develop my own film. Yeah. But the photojournalism really kind of like steered me in the direction. I had already been taking photos. I had been taking photos for like, since I was a kid. Like cameras were just always around our family. But it's not something that I ever thought was going to be like a creative outlet for me. Huh. So like I said, cameras were always around. We always had like family gatherings. Yeah. And so we had like disposable cameras and like Polaroids, and like family was always just like, yo, I'll take a picture of the whole family together. So I would do it. So I was just like comfortable, snapping photos. Right. And even in the military, I had a camera with me a lot. But like I said, it was just something that I never thought I could use as a creative outlet.
Well, so let me ask, like when you describe the family stuff, it's basically like you're just cataloging what's happening.
Yeah.
And was it the same in the military? You just kind of like keep them.
Exactly.
All right. But then you took the photojournalism class. Is that when it started to shift into something creative for you?
So like right those 3.5 years that I was going to Metro.
Yeah.
IG, Instagram was kind of like popping off.
Yeah.
Like kind of the beginnings of it. And so I was moving away from like being on Facebook and Twitter.
Right.
And got onto IG. And at first, I wasn't really posting anything except like the music that I was listening to or whatever. And then it was like right around the time that I got my first iPhone.
Huh.
And I seen all these different rappers like Evidence and like from Dilated Peoples.
Yeah.
And like who else was taking photos? Like Alchemist. Like they were just like taking photos on their phones and like doing really like cool creative stuff. It's like, I kind of want to do that too. I kind of want to emulate that. And really, I just like was going around because I had just moved here, permanently in 2010. And so I was just kind of cataloging the same thing, cataloging the city that I was in, the new place that I was going to call home. And then I took that photojournalism class.
Right.
And it was right around the same time that DJ Low-Key reached out to me. Okay. He was like, yo, you take pretty cool photos. It was like with just a phone. It's like, would you be down to buy like a camera and like come take photos of my party? Wow. And I was like, okay, like it's going to be like it's kind of a stretch going from like shooting, iPhone photos like in the streets of like, I don't know, a bench or flowers or something, to like photographing a party, with like a professional camera and like a mounted flash that I've never used before. Yeah. So I was like, sure, I'll give it a try.
It's dope. First of all, shouts to DJ Low-Key. Yeah. Right. But it's dope that just community brings you into the next level of your art. Yeah. You know what I mean?
And Low-Key's like a specialist about like stuff like that. Yeah. He's the amount of opportunities and doors that he's opened for other people is insane. Like, nice. He cares a lot about the people here.
Okay, so now you go from doing like photos around the city with your iPhone, buying a professional camera, flash, having to like interact with people at the party, having to wade through the crowd, get people to pose. Yeah, like that's a whole new set of skills. How was that for you?
I mean, the free alcohol helped definitely. Right. Like it definitely loosened me up a little bit, and I was able to like approach people and these large groups of people that would come out to Solution to go dance, and to go drink, and luckily I was embraced, with open arms, and it's definitely like a golden era of that party, like right around 2013 to 2017, 18.
Some of the best pictures on my social media are ones that you took of me at that party, man.
I love to hear that, bro.
It's really true. Okay, well, so then, what was it like for you, like just as an artist, right? So now you're doing this job and you got this new arena. Are you feeling connected to the photography? Do you feel like something's developing, or is it just kind of like you're still just snapping pictures?
That's a good question. I'm just starting to like kind of develop my eye. Yeah. Because like the very first Solution I shot was like the Halloween. Okay. And everybody's dressed up and everybody wants their picture taken. Right. And it's like, it's super fun. Everybody's like, trying to show off my costume and all this. But like the following week, I'm back there and it's like nobody has costume on, right? Right. So it's like, okay, I'm like, how do I approach these people now? That, maybe they don't want to get their photos taken. So it was all about just like developing my confidence and developing my style, more than anything at that time. Developing the way I edited my photos. Yeah. It was a struggle, it was like definitely like a learning process. There was a lot of photographers that were coming up at the same time. Yeah. And I would look at their stuff and I'm like, man, this stuff's really good. Like, I don't know if my stuff can live up to this. So it was just all about gaining confidence and sticking with it. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, let me ask you some practical questions. So, were you doing digital or were you doing film?
For Solution, I was like doing digital, like Solution and Goodness is all digital. Okay. And then what were you editing your photos in? Lightroom.
Yeah. Yeah. Like for people who don't know, like what goes into editing a photo? Like what are you doing?
Well, when it comes to like, let's just stay with the topic of the like party photos.
Yeah.
Like I have, Meadowlark is like a super small space that I used to shoot in. And so I would shoot with the real wide lens. And so when you shoot in these type of environments, there's like a lot of distortion on the edges.
Okay.
And so I try to that's the first thing I do is crop.
Okay.
So I'm cropping like whatever I feel like the subject is in that photo.
Right.
And then trying to like get rid of the distractions. And then I'm just trying to like really, because it's so dark in there and it's the light, the flash is so strong. I'm just trying to like make sure we get some like good skin tones.
Yeah.
And yeah, just like not trying to really overdo it. You know what I'm saying? Because that's when you start really like making people look kind of silly and like
plasticky,
orangey. Yeah.
It sounds like Solution and Goodness ended up being sort of like a boot camp for you.
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then how did other opportunities for photography start opening up for you?
So yes, I mean, like just all the people that I would meet, every night, every Friday night, every Sunday, afternoon or whatever for Goodness. There's a lot of people that kind of like go to these parties and have their own thing going, their own fashion brands, their own events, other DJs that go there that are doing their own parties, on different nights. So yeah, so it was really just like meeting these people and like, they're like, yo, what are you doing, next week? What are you doing next month? And, it really opened a lot of doors for me. Like I said, like low-key, just giving me the opportunity to come shoot for him. Yeah. Really opened all the doors that are like still opening up for me now. It has to do a lot with low-key, just taking a chance on me.
That's dope.
Yeah, man. All right. And that led to like weddings. Like I never thought I was going to shoot a wedding. Yeah. Yeah. The first wedding I shot I was nervous. I was super nervous.
Yeah. Cause you got to catch those moments. Right? Yeah. Like those don't get repeated.
Exactly. And so couples would come and I would take photos of them and they were like, yo, do you shoot weddings? I'm like, I will. Right. I can.
Yeah. So how did you approach it? Like, did you know what the moments were or did you like?
Yeah. I mean, I shout out to Google. Right. Because I was like, yo, what do I need to like, what do I need to capture? I mean, the first wedding I did, they were like, all right, so you can send us a contract and we'll sign it and we'll get, I was like, I gotta Google wedding contract. Right. I gotta come up with the wedding contract. So I don't know what I'm doing. Hired Blake Jackson. Yeah. Hired him as my assistant.
Nice.
And he was like, just starting out. Okay. And so not really knowing how to compensate him and how to compensate myself, being like this was my first wedding. Yeah. It was just like nerve wracking, but really like, bro, like the internet. Shout out to the internet because there's a lot of information on it that comes in really handy. Huh. Let me tell you about the weirdest thing I've ever photographed. It was a funeral. Huh. My friend JC, Panama, Soweto. Yeah. Yeah. His grandfather passed away. And his grandfather was a Tuskegee Airman. Yeah. In the Air Force. And so, JC knew that I was also in the Air Force. And he asked me if I was willing to photograph the funeral. And I said, yeah, I mean, of course. Like, right. Of course I would do it. But I had to hit the Googles, bro. I was like, you know what? Like, what am I supposed to photograph? Like, how do I go about this being as respectful as I can? Right. And so that was like an eye-opening experience. And it definitely it was one of those moments where you kind of like feel like you take the next step in your career, or your creative career. Okay. And it just like really opened up my eyes to like being in the moment. Yeah. As far as like my photography goes. And just, just kind of like being, as like I said, being as respectful as I could of, given the circumstances.
Right. Now, it's interesting to hear this progression, right? Because you talked about when you were a kid, there were cameras around and you're just documenting what's happening, right? Same thing in the military. Photojournalism, by definition, is documenting what's happening. Right. But then you move to this next level where you're doing the parties, right. And you're having to catch people who are like, drunk, whatever, right. And convince them, hey, let's take this photo and stuff like that. And then you move into weddings and this funeral where it's like these precious moments where you're involved in sort of like the most significant moments of people's lives. Yeah. And your ability to document has an impact just
Yeah.
on another level. So how did that feel to you? Because it feels like as your career grows, the stakes keep kind of going up.
Yeah. I guess kind of applying those moments, like with the wedding and like the funeral, and like learning how to apply those moments, like being in the moment, being mindful, being respectful, being able to gain people's trust, just trying to apply all that stuff to shooting in the street. Yeah, you know, that definitely helped out a lot.
Was that the beginning of They Shootin'? Or is that what this is?
I mean, They Shootin' was like a hashtag that I created.
Oh, okay.
Right at the beginning of like me using like when I was on Instagram.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, and so like I thought it was a clever hip hop pun,
right?
Whatever. Everybody knows I'm a Nas fan. Yeah. Shout out to Nas, he just dropped a new album, which is incredible. But so I was like, oh, you know, They Shootin' made you look. Right. So I was like, oh, it's a hip hop pun. It's like photography pun too. And so I was just like tagging all my photos with They Shootin'. And then a couple of years went by, and I met Blake. Yeah. And other people started using the hashtag. He started using the hashtag. Okay. And other people started using the hashtag. And then like Instagram photographer meetups started becoming a thing. Huh. And so we would go out and do like scavenger hunts, like photography scavenger hunts. And it was all under like They Shootin'. He's like, yeah, we have something here that we should try to use.
I've never heard of that. So like it would just be like, find this thing and photograph it?
Yeah. So we did one down Colfax. Okay. Between like East High School and like the Capitol. Okay. And we came up with the list. Like we went out, it was just Blake and I. Yeah. And we went out and like found a bunch of stuff. I was like, all right, let's like use these as like, you know, the stuff that we need to have people find. Yeah. You know, like one was like find a pinball machine or something. And so, so like we ended up, having like a group of like 20 of us.
That's dope.
Yeah. And then like we gave out prizes. Okay.
So then Blake says, hey, we have something. Mm-hmm. And what you guys started doing like gallery shows, right?
Yeah. So like the very first time we did a gallery show was at like Shag Lounge.
Okay. Like, you know, yeah.
Not really a fine art gallery, but but it was him, myself, our homie Kevin, and then our homie David, who ended up moving out to the Bay. Okay. But it was just like city-based photography, you know, kind of like some hypebeast photography style shit. But, you know, it went well because, like, we had the homie Mikey Fresh. Yeah. And then at the time, his name was DJ Bloodsport.
Oh, yeah.
Now he goes by Vandalay. And they were like, yeah, you should have a photography show at Shag and we'll spin and it'll just be a good time. Like, cool. So we made it happen. We got a really good response, man. A lot of photographers came out that were like on the same type of vibe, same type of style. And it was just a good time, you know?
Okay, so I want to ask, because it sounds like there's a change in focus, because up to this point, a lot of what you've been doing has been just capturing what's happening, like at an event or something like that. But now you're going out and finding things to shoot. Yeah. Right.
So it's all like kind of overlapping. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like not really my style of photography, like the evolution of my style. Yeah. It hasn't really been like linear. Like it's been kind of all overlapping. A lot of the stuff that I was shooting, like going out and shooting the city, like shooting wide portraits, like of the building, and like kind of like trying to, play with like different like perspectives. Yeah. That was all going on while I was also doing like weddings. Okay. And the funeral. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And so.
Well, so when you're doing that stuff, like the cities and what are you looking for? Like what matters to you as an artist in those moments?
Yeah, like composition, like trying to find different perspectives of like how we look at the city. Trying to find different spots that I haven't really seen people in before, like trying to get up on rooftops, like that are people don't have access to. Okay. So that's what I was looking for. Just trying to capture it in a way that I hadn't seen before. Yeah. Capture the city of Denver in a way I hadn't seen before, because that's like a lot of the photographers that I saw out here, it was kind of whitewashed, kind of corny, very like straightforward.
Yeah.
There was like no swag to it. I felt like.
Okay.
And so the photographers that I was meeting up with and kind of like getting to know at that time, especially during that first show at Shag, we're on the same type of vibe that we were on. And so it was just like fun, like connecting with them and like learning from each other.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You talked about this desire to like show the city from different perspectives and stuff like that. You know how earlier we mentioned like art can be healing for yourself, or they can be the things you want to communicate. Mm-hmm. At this point, when you're doing like trying to show the city through different eyes, is there something that you're trying to communicate to people who see your photography?
I guess at that time, not really. There wasn't like a really a focus that I was trying to show, but right around that time was like when I finished school. Okay. So then I had that photojournalism class. So like I said, it's all overlap. All overlaps. And so learning about photojournalism and learning the stories that I could tell. Yeah. The people that I could meet and, you know, the communities that I could try to represent. Mm-hmm. It really shifted that focus. Okay. From just going out and just documenting.
It's like a photography joke. Shifted the focus, but
you know. Right on. And so so like going from like, you know, capturing the city just to capture the city just because nobody else is doing it this way. Yeah. To capturing the people of the city and like these different like subcultures in a way that allows these stories to be told and like pushed to the forefront. Yeah. That's really when like everything changed for me.
It's really cool, man, to hear kind of that whole progression, right? Because, I just think about Solution to Goodness, getting you used to approaching strangers, and asking to take photographs. So do you feel like all of those skills, when you got to the point where now I'm going to hit these subcultures and walk up to people and be like, hey, can I take your photo? Do you feel like all of that kind of prepared you?
Like goodness and all that stuff? Yeah. Solution? Definitely. Yeah, definitely. The first time I ever saw lowriders here, the first time that I ever photographed lowriders, was during a Cinco de Mayo, and I had heard about how lowriders would cruise up and down Federal, right? And I had seen maybe one or two before, but I had never like shot them, so I wanted to document it. And so I cruised up and down Federal, and I found Grandpa's Burger Haven down on, it's like close to Alameda and Federal. Okay. And it's like a huge West Side staple. Mm-hmm. Like it's an important landmark for the community there. But lowriders post up there all the time. Mm-hmm. And I met this guy named Kevin from Out of Control Car Club. And super nice guy, had his two lowriders out there. And so I stopped and I was like, hey, man, you mind if I take some photos of your car? And he was like more than willing for me to do that. Yeah. And then, I kind of like got brave enough. I was like, hey, man, you mind if I take your portrait too? He's like, sure, let's do it. And so from then on out, like I was jumping on Facebook and like finding these different lowrider groups and chats and like just finding out where people are going to be at next, finding that there's like all these different areas around Denver where lowriders meet up on a frequent basis just to go cruise, just to kick back and kind of like have people stop and admire their cars. And, that's like the lowrider lifestyle out here. And so it was important for me, especially because growing up in California, lowrider was such a like important part of me growing up. Right. From the lowriders magazines to the lowrider art that I tried to like emulate from the magazines. Yeah. To seeing it in like, my favorite hip hop videos and like my favorite movies growing up. I never knew, being ignorant to what Colorado was when I first moved here, I never knew that there was a scene here for that. Right. And so, really it was about me trying to find stuff that reminded me of home. Mm-hmm. And the lowrider community out here really reminded me of home. And so like it connected me to Denver in a way that I wasn't connected to the city before. Yeah. Yeah.
It's dope, man. All right. Well, so I imagine most people who are like, at least a significant portion of people who are listening to this are artists who are thinking about their own approach. Like, how do I get into this place? How do I do this thing? Yeah. So some of my questions go that way. So you take these photos of the lowrider community. You get in, you start taking more and more. Where do you show them? Like, how does that come about?
I mean, at first it was like all, just put them on Instagram.
Yeah.
I was sharing it with like the people. I would get their contact information. Like, yo, here's this photo that I took. And I'm like, oh, thanks, man. Huh. And they would use them as their, Facebook profile photos. It was cool, seeing people like appreciate that stuff.
Yeah.
And then one of the best pieces of advice I received as a photographer was have your own website.
Yeah.
That you could post your best work at. People will take you more seriously if you have a website. If you have a card with a website that you can take them to and not just like an IG ad or handle, people are going to take you a lot more seriously. And so I did that. I got my website going and I started breaking up my work into different chapters. And then we started doing doing more of that DIY style exhibits.
Yeah.
Blake and I started doing the Winter in America series, which kind of allowed us to bring different artists together, different photographers, to kind of showcase work that focused on different societal issues like homelessness and drug abuse and domestic abuse, just through the lens of up and coming photographers. And just over time, man, it kind of just snowballed and allowed us to get to the place we're at now. I mean, Blake is shooting for ESPN magazine now. And
nice.
I'm able to have my work in the History Museum.
Right.
So, it's kind of manifesting what we wanted to do with it. When we first started, it was we're trying to bring all these different photographers together that may have never gotten the chance to exhibit their work ever. Okay. Including myself. Yeah. Including Blake. And so I was all about doing it for ourselves, doing it, for the communities that we were in. Just to I don't know, give us a sense of pride in our work. And give us a creating spaces for us, Right. Not everybody that picks up a camera imagines that they're going to have their work in a museum or I had my work showcased at the airport. Right. Just trying to create these spaces for new artists to hey, there is space for you to show your work, have people appreciate your work, maybe even have people buy your work. And who knows where that can take you, Yeah. It took us so far.
Good places.
Yeah, pretty good places.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, is that what you wanted? Did you imagine so sometimes people go into art and they don't have a vision. They're just it's cool to create something. Mm-hmm. Other people go in and they're ultimately, I'm going to get these galleries. I'm going to get a magazine to hire me to do something. You know what I mean? Yeah. How was it for you? Was it just you just jumped in and felt your way through it, or did you have a goal?
I think it was more of just jumping in and kind of finding our way. Yeah. And taking on these these opportunities come and you face them head on and I don't know where it can go from here, but I'm gonna do it. And nice. Yeah. So man, it's just been a blessing, really a blessing and a privilege to I opened up at History Colorado last week, man. And
congratulations.
Thank you. The response has been amazing. And just being able to showcase these communities that are so significant in, to the fabric of the city. Yeah. That aren't celebrated as often as they should be. Right. It's like I said, it's been a privilege.
The focus of the show at History Colorado, is that the lowrider subculture stuff, or is it?
So there's some lowrider stuff in there. Okay. It's broken up into different sections. Basically, what's going on at History Colorado is that they're doing a thing called Building Denver. Okay. And it's an ode. It's a dedication to the built environment of Denver. So the architecture. Yeah. And all these different buildings. And there's huge maps that are blown up and placed on the wall from the early 1900s. Okay. And it kind of just shows how the city itself has developed over time. Mm-hmm. They have these little sculptures and models of different parts of the city. It's really cool. But what they wanted me to do with the exhibit is called Brick and Soul. Okay. Is they wanted me to connect the environment to the human element. Huh. So connecting the architecture to the human side of Denver and what what really gives life to these lifeless buildings, right?
Yeah.
And it's like it's the people that, you know, are born and raised here. It's the people that celebrate in Denver, and they also mourn in Denver, right? And they protest in Denver, and they cruise in Denver. Sometimes they protest and cruise at the same time,
right? You
know, so it's like really paying homage to the people that built the city, and you know, it's not a like overall comprehensive like history. It's just like it's based on the time that I've spent here, you know, and it's from the perspective of an outsider, and it's dedicated to the people that have made my experience here meaningful.
That's dope, man.
Yeah, thank you.
I've been talking with artists about like just their journey, right? And of course, a lot of people listening are trying to figure out what their own journey is going to be.
Yeah.
And part of everybody's journey is discussing things that didn't work out, like things that we tried and maybe had failed or were discouraging.
Yeah.
Do you have some examples of something like that?
Do I gotta talk about yeah, I mean, like I got into music, and I was rapping for a while.
Okay.
I opened up for some like pretty big artists. Like,
okay. I didn't even notice about you, man.
Yeah, man. So like, ask Loki, bro. Ask Justin. He might have some tracks. I've done songs with like Samir from The Reminders.
Oh yeah.
I've opened up for like Joel Ortiz out of New York. And man, different artists. And, you know, like I did that for a couple years, and it was fun, and it was a learning experience, but ultimately like I didn't see it going any further than what it, you know?
You speak in my heart, man.
You know?
Yo, I won all these rap battles in Atlanta, like just street cipher stage stuff. Then I came here and it was a year that I did 52 shows and made enough money to hire a band to back me for all of them. Yeah. And I'm doing them at like Walnut Room, Dazzle, place like that.
Back when Walnut Room was like a really dope hip hop spot.
Yeah. Yeah. Couldn't get no coverage. Yeah. I was sending press releases. I couldn't get in the underground music showcase. Like,
Denver's a hard place for hip hop, bro.
Yeah. People would give me like props at the shows.
Sure.
But nothing was happening. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so I feel you. Like I put exactly as much hustle into that as I do into this comic book stuff. And for some reason, when I do comic books, people care. You know,
I came to the realization, I was like, I don't know how much further I can take this.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to lose the love for the art form. Just because I had a bad experience with it, you know? But that was like right around the time that I started going to Metro State. Okay. So I kind of like left it behind, started focusing on my studies. And then that's when I like picked up the phone and like was taking pictures of the city.
Wow.
But like never dreamed that would lead me to where I'm at now with my photography.
I mean, that's a real parallel, man, because like, okay, my father introduced me to comic books when I was 5 because he wanted me to read. He's a journalist.
Yeah, okay.
So he got me into comics. So I've been reading comics my whole life.
Okay.
And when it wasn't cool, like when I was in elementary school, I didn't know anybody else in the school who liked comic books. I had one friend who went to a different school. And then when I was 10, I started going to comic book conventions in Atlanta. And me and my homeboy would go, the one friend from the other school.
Yeah.
We would go and we would be the only kids and only black people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And there would be like 300 people at the most. That's comic book conventions when we started were not even big enough in Atlanta that it could be its own thing. It would have to be like comic book / Star Trek convention.
Right.
And they didn't make black Vulcaneers. So, I was
way. So you remember?
Yeah. I was like, I want to. They did them. I was like, I want to be a Vulcan, but I couldn't do it. Right. But so like, I worked a lot of years in hip hop, and like, we talked before the thing, like before the recording, like, I went on tiny tours and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And just nothing seemed to be working. And then, like I got discouraged, did insurance for like 4 years. And then I was like, I'm just going to try and write a comic because I'm not happy insurance.
Yeah.
And suddenly, like, I put out the first graphic novel in 2017. And I can be a professor. I got to do that TED Talk. All this, like, if you had told 10-year-old me that writing a comic book would make me a professor. Right? Yeah.
I remember seeing you at Comic-Con.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Right. So, like, all of these things have happened. And I think what you're saying about, like, being an artist, loving different things, but being open to trying those different things and seeing
not being scared of failing.
Yeah.
Not being scared of failing. Like, I think ego is like one of the things that kills artists, more than anything.
Yeah.
And like realizing that, hey, maybe I'm not cut out for this,
Yeah.
And I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I was able to realize that, because, if I hadn't, I don't know where I'd be.
Right.
I don't know where I'd be. So I'm grateful for those couple years learning, it was a learning experience. And like, I got to like rap on stage with Mr. Liff in front of like a few thousand people at the Ogden.
Yeah.
But, that was it. That was really it. And, being able to like say that led and eventually like those connections that I made in the hip hop world here allowed me to cover a lot of these shows.
Yeah.
And meet other artists like that I idolized and like be able to like take their photos.
Yeah. So it wasn't wasted. That's the thing. People have to pay attention to that, right? Because same for me, like all the hustle I learned in hip hop, I applied to graphic novels and comics. Nobody's hustling like that in that arena.
Yo,
you know what I'm saying?
Facts.
Yeah.
Facts. So that hustle that you had to like, the hustle that it takes to like try to book a show.
Yep.
Try to sell tickets, try to sell merch. Like you flip that hustle around and like focus that hustle in a different career, different, it pays off because like you said, I love that.
But I think that whole message of none of those efforts are wasted. Like that time I spent in hip hop, time you spend in hip hop, like those directly feed into what we're doing now.
For sure.
And we wouldn't be able to do it on this level if we hadn't had those times, Yeah. That's a really dope thing. All right. So creatively, ideas, they come to you all the time.
Yeah.
How do you decide which ones you're going to act on?
That's a good question. I kind of just go for it.
Yeah.
So like if I get an idea, I just kind of like go head first into it. Yeah. And try to execute it. And, I think it's in the execution that I find whether or not it'll work. Or whether or not this has the potential of being something more. So there's a lot of stuff that I've like tried to do that I like never really continued with. Yeah. But like the stuff with the lowriders. Yeah. Yeah. It's something that I was like one day I'm going to go out there and meet people. And then I just stuck with it. And like, 7 years later, like the city of Denver, the city council of Denver, put out a proclamation, 2 years ago, and proclaimed a day in August as a Cruise Down Fez Day. And my name was like in the proclamation. Cool. Nice. And, it's like, I'm super grateful for it. I don't know if I truly deserve to have my name in that proclamation, especially when there was like so many people that were left off that proclamation that had way more to do with the lowrider community. But either way, I'm thankful, and I'm thankful that I'm like able to represent this community with the photography, and I've gained the trust of the folks here to be able to represent them. That's dope. Yeah. Huh. All right. So one of the other things that I've been discussing with a lot of people is artistic fear. Yeah. Because, a lot of people who are like aspiring artists, they're aspiring mostly because they're afraid. And so my questions for you are, do you feel fear about your art? And then how do you manage it? Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Especially as somebody that represents Denver with their photography, that's not from here. I feel that a lot. Just like, I feel like I could never represent the city as intimately as somebody that's from here. Yeah. Right. I haven't spent enough time here. I haven't dealt with the heartache and the loss of like growing up here, seeing the city turn and change as much as it has. There's people that have, lifelong Denver residents that have seen it change. So I definitely feel that fear, and I definitely feel like that imposter syndrome. Yeah. But when I see people's reactions to the work, when I see when people reach out to me and say, I love what you're doing. I love how you're representing the city. I love how you're representing our culture, our community. When they say that it makes them feel like they're like seeing photos from like their earlier years.
Yeah.
You know, it makes them feel like they're home, like seeing my photos. That's what makes me abandon all that fear. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. I was just thinking about, okay, so fear is just such a weird thing, right? Like, so I really encountered it when I was doing the insurance job because it was sales based, right? So you mentioned being an introvert. I'm an introvert too. That's part of why I don't talk to many people. Like even on the dance floor, I just go. Yeah. So selling business insurance meant that I had to walk into a business, introduce myself, ask for the owner, initiate a conversation, and then be like, so who's your insurance with?
Yeah, right.
So I would do it, but it was hard. So like my whole practice was like I would walk to the front of a business, take a deep breath, get myself ready, right? So I decided I was going to go down. I parked on 6th.
Like a Cap Hill area?
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, like that whole strip, right? That's all like...
all businesses.
Yeah, it's like mom and pop businesses, right? So the very first one, I park, and it's a brick building, and I was going to do that same plan. I was going to walk in front, take the deep breath. Yeah. And so I walk in the front, and it's a picture window. It's a hair salon, and it's all these like super pretty women turn and look at me, and I was like, oh, and I just walked away like I wasn't trying to go in, right? Now you've seen me talk to women on the dance floor, right? Yeah. So like it wasn't even like pretty women in different contexts wouldn't make me nervous, right? But like for some reason the fact that I was coming to sell insurance, I just panicked, right? And like it was I was embarrassed with myself, right? So I decided, okay, I'm going to go to every other business and then come back to this one last, right? Yeah. And so I did. I spent a couple hours and I walked in, and then I came to them last, and they're the ones who bought insurance from me. Wow. So what that really taught me was whatever fear, whatever it was that had nothing to do with them. They needed insurance, and I needed to sell insurance.
It's that fear of rejection sometimes. Right. Like it really stifles you, can stifle you. Yeah. You know, if you just don't like push through it and overcome it. I mean, I feel you, bro. Like that. Sometimes, like it's never the photos that I capture that I really love, that I really love, that I think of the most. It's the ones that I was too scared to go capture. Wow. That I like, that haunt me. Huh. Yeah.
That's really something.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay, let me ask you, man. You see a young Armando pops up on the scene, you know, just a younger version of you. Yeah. And thinks about getting into this photography game. What advice would you give him?
Do it for you. Do it because you love to do it. Don't do it because it's what's popular. You know, it's not. Don't do it for the likes or the recognition. Yeah. Do it because you really enjoy the art. Yeah. Do it because you feel the need to create something, but don't do it because you feel like people are waiting on you to like do something with your art. Don't do it because you feel like you need to like drop the next hot image. It'll show through the work when it's authentic. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Nice. I think yeah. So it's like stay true to yourself. As cliche as that shit is, yeah, it's the realest thing, man. Just like stay true to yourself and what you love, and the work will be authentic.
Word. Yeah. Okay. What's next? What are your goals? Where you headed? What you want to do next creatively?
Man, I don't know. I'm like trying to get back out and travel more. Yeah. Like I love traveling and going to different places that I've never been before, and like, you know, meeting people and documenting what's going on in those cities. So hopefully I can get back out there soon. This whole COVID shit is, you know, I'm like ready for it to be over, but we got to be careful. But yeah, the Exhibit Colorado is up now. It's going to be open for another year. So it'll be up until July 30th, which is kind of crazy.
That's great.
Yeah. Just had a meeting today with the Botanic Gardens. Yeah. On hopefully a project that we'll be working with on for the next couple years. It's kind of a long-term project, but hopefully we can celebrate the Latino agriculture and cuisine here in the state. Okay. It's a long-term project, but I'm pretty excited about it. I have all these ideas that are like bubbling up being the son of like 2 immigrant parents.
Right.
You know? What else? I mean, we're gonna have some things coming up with a shooting hopefully soon.
Okay.
Trying to like push that more and kind of like get back to the essence of how we started as a group and get more of our the people that mess with us, like kind of get them into these arenas, like these museums, and hopefully maybe do a group show.
All right. Well, so you mentioned social media stuff. If people want to follow your work, where do they go? Yeah.
So at Armando_Gennaro.
I'm going to encourage you to spell your last name.
Yeah. So I will spell my whole name.
All right.
So ARMANDO, and the last name is GENEYRO. And then my website is just ArmandoGennaro.com.
Dope.
Yeah.
Hey, Armando, I appreciate you taking time to talk to me, man.
Alan, man, thank you for having me. Thank you, MCA, man. This was really fun.
All right.
Appreciate it. I'm glad that you and I were able to have a full-on conversation. This is
after
the
years,
conversation
right?
we've had ever.
Without music playing, that's what it takes.
Right, yeah, with a loud-ass speaker.
Thank you to today's guest, Armando Gennaro. Visit mcadenver.org/podcast to learn more about his work. How Art is Born is hosted by me, R. Allen Brooks. Cheyenne Michaels is our producer and editor. Courtney Law is our executive producer. How Art is Born is a project of the Museum of Contemporary Art, Denver.